Okay.
And we're back. Thanks for staying with us, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We think we have it now. So I do apologize. We have Dana McMillan from DragonFly, who will be leading today's financial presentation, and Chelsea Jurek, who some of you may know if you've been playing around in DragonFly or came to some of our trainings. Chelsea's been helping with the trainings, and she's one of the key support people for Ohio. So she will be assisting Dana, and we're going to turn it right over to them with to go back through the slide that we touched on earlier, but they're going to put their spin on it.
All right. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for hanging in here with us. Thank you for having us and for joining this meeting this morning. I'm excited to kind of do a financial dive with you all. Kind of like Laura said, I know several people have been to some of the trainings so far, but we're excited to kind of do a focus solely on the finance and the payment platform. So thanks for being here today. I am Dana. I'm the controller here at DragonFly. I've been with DragonFly for a couple of years now, but I have about 14 years of accounting experience prior to DragonFly. So just being able to take, that experience and being on that side of the desk and bringing that to DragonFly and assisting in when our developers and our engineers are working, giving that financial accounting aspect view of things, all things reporting and month-end close, and, here to service our finance customers. So we will run quickly back through this slide. I know that Laura has so graciously reviewed this for us while we were waiting, but just to kind of quickly overview what we will accomplish here in a finance training, we're going to look at organization structure and how that needs to look for your school or your district. We're going to look at the user management and permissions, so just the people that are connected to your org and how to review and edit those permissions that they have. We'll walk through how to set up a bank account and manage and set those permissions, as well as the DragonFly cash account. And keep in mind, we call the cash account is the holding account, whereas you could fund into your cash account and pay your officials. So that is a DragonFly specific cash account term. We'll talk about how you can fund your cash account, how you'll actually pay an official if you're going to pay your officials through DragonFly. And then we'll look at how you can review all of the transaction data and run reports. We'll briefly talk about the 1099 process that DragonFly handles. And then I have included a link to some material that's already available out on our website specific to the financial administrators. There's some pre-recorded demos. There's just educational material. You can search questions, whatever. So that's out there and available on our DragonFly Max website already. If we have any questions, happy to answer those at the end. And then I've just put my name and our support team as a direct contact. Support's always available. And then absolutely, if you have anything finance or payments related, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to help any way I can. So we're going to jump right into a DragonFly org and kind of walk through what the setup looks like, the users. So yes, in our schools and people tab. And I'll start by saying, if you haven't already created a DragonFly login, we do recommend that all users create their own login. There's no need to share logins or credentials. Each user will have their own rules and permissions, so you see things based on what your user role is, so there's no need to share logins. Everyone use their own login. Also, once you've created your account, you're connecting to your high school and middle school where applicable. One of the things that we talk about in the organization structure, just from previous conversations that we've had, and in Ohio and in other states, we know that every district does things differently, every school does things differently. So it can be set up, your high school and your orgs can be set up how it needs to be for you and your area. So I say that to say we don't necessarily currently have a district level organization created, but that's absolutely something that we can do. And so if it is, you know, in your area that you need a district org created and then connect to all your member schools, we can do that. We'll help you set that up and connect to those schools. Just reach out to myself or the support team and we can get that org set up kind of however you see fit, how it needs to be for you specifically. Once, you know, that's set up and you're connected, in this schools and people tab, when you're logged in, this is where I kind of like to start. So this tab is going to show you all the people that are connected to your organization. I recommend filtering by staff. When you're looking at it, you're going to see all the staff members that have connected to your org. With the administrator role, anytime a new member requests to join your school, you're going to get that notification when you log in and you would review and approve any new addition users to your organization. Inside each user, when you click on those, you can also review their user roles. So once you click on a user and then the 3 dots next to the school, and change roles for that person, this is where you're going to see all the different roles and permissions that each user has. And as an administrator, you have the ability to go in and review and edit and change those as needed. And this is going to be important to keep in mind when we move over and talk about a cash account and bank account. You're going to set permissions on those usage, and you're going to want to kind of keep in mind what users have what roles. So for instance, if you're assigning a bank account to a finance role, you'll want to make sure that the users that need that have the financial role so that they will have access. I think that's all in the schools and people tab. Just know that that's there. That's where you're going to look at to review those when you're setting up those permissions in your bank account. So if we move over to our school funds tab and we go to manage accounts, this is going to be where we're setting up a bank account and managing our DragonFly cash account. So let me start by saying you can fund a DragonFly cash account via check or bank account, debit, ACH transfer. There are many schools that we're aware that still need to send a check to fund the cash account, that they cannot connect their bank and do an ACH.
So it looks like we might have lost Dana here for a hot second. Chelsea, are you able to jump in by any chance?
Yes. So as Dana was talking about while we wait for her to hop back on, she's talking about funding your cash account via the check funding instruction page. When you're looking for those specific instructions, we have a printable instruction page that we have you fill out. And that includes your school name, your DragonFly number, also the very specific cash account ID number for your school and the cash account. Now, where you're going to find these, back on the schools and people page, up at the very top underneath your school name, you're going to see the org code. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. This is very specific for your school. So that helps us when you send in those written checks for us to fund your DragonFly account to know which org that we're putting this check into. So that org code is very, very helpful for us. When we're looking at the general fund cash account code, we're looking for this account number here next to your DragonFly general fund. So adding those 2 additional codes will help us locate and fund that cash account. Now, if we have any questions when we're looking into this, if we're missing any information, we'll always reach out to the school to gather that extra additional information. This funding sheet is right here. When I click on the financial forms, it's a PDF file that you can print from. You will print from this, fill out that information, just as I explained. We also have our mailing address that you can send that to. And then once we receive that check, we go in and place that into the general fund. Now, just keep in mind when you're sending checks to us, it does, the timeline of this does depend on the Postal Service, okay? So allow applicable timeline for us to get that in, to receive it, and then to put it into your general fund account. So that funding sheet is back underneath the school funds tab in the manage accounts, and then the funding instructions. I'm going to try and get Dana back in. Okay. When you're adding a bank account, in the upper right, we have on the blue button right here, add bank account. Now this is for when you're adding your school bank account. So we have different options here. The only thing that we can pull from is, of course, a bank account and not a credit card. Now you can pay officials with a credit card, but we're not linking credit cards to the DragonFly platform. We will link bank accounts to the DragonFly platform. Thanks, Dana. You're still on mute.
So sorry. Yeah, no idea.
So I went over the DragonFly PDF instructions for the cash accounts for sending in a check, showed them where the organization code is on both their schools and people page, and then also on that general fund account. We're just about to touch on adding the bank account for a ACH transfer.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah, so adding a bank account, this is going to allow you to transfer funds onto the platform, and when you withdraw funds off the platform, you're going to go via that ACH transfer back to your bank. So adding a bank account, you're just going to create a new account, very standard information as far as the account type, the account holder type, the names on the account, and then your bank name, routing number, account number. You can give it a nickname if you're going to add multiple bank accounts, but it's also here in this adding a bank account that you're going to assign who can use this account. This is in reference to those user roles that we talked about earlier. So you're going to want to make sure that you assign user roles to specifically cover the users that you want to have access to this bank account. It can also be done by an individual. Just keep in mind that if you assign only one individual to this bank account and say that individual leaves your organization, you're going to have to reach out to support to kind of help transfer that access. So typically we would say, you know, a finance role, but again, that's completely up to you all, however you want to set that up. Once you save this bank account, it's going to send micro deposits, so 2 small deposits and 1 withdrawal that's going to net it to 0 to that bank account. And you'll have to log into that bank account, grab those deposit amounts, and enter it here in this bank account section. It's asking to verify the bank account, and that's a security feature that is just confirming that you have access to the bank account that you've linked to your organization. So that is just an added security. Once you confirm those micro deposit amounts, you're going to see a green check mark that confirms that that is a verified bank account and it's ready to be used. So once your cash accounts are set up, Chelsea, please forgive me, did you talk about cash accounts?
Not adding and expanding the cash accounts.
Okay, yes. So as you can see, you are defaulted one general fund cash account. Every school gets the cash account called general fund, and there are default permissions that are already set in that cash account. So you're going to want to click edit that cash account and review those permissions inside that cash account that already exist and confirm that those permissions are what you need them to be. So you'll notice there are two separate permissions you see here who can view the account. And so that's going to be anyone that can view the transactions and see what's happening versus who can pay with the account, who will actually have the button to click pay and use the funds in the cash account. So keep in mind when you're setting permissions on the cash account versus the bank account, those are monitored completely separately. So you may have, slimmer users using the bank account and then maybe a broader scope access to use the funds once they're available is something that I've typically seen. Maybe only a finance role can fund the account, but then maybe it's finance, AD, and principal can actually make payment using the available funds. So that's just kind of the difference between setting those permissions on a bank account versus on a cash account. So just keep that in mind. One, the general cash account is defaulted to administration. Go in, look at that, edit that if you want that to be a finance role or something different. Also, you have the option to create multiple cash accounts. I believe the limit is 20. You can create up to 20 cash accounts. You would do that the same as adding a new bank account. Just create a new DragonFly cash account. You'll set those same permissions when you are creating that. And what that is really is more of an organization tool. I've seen schools use this to separate, maybe by sport. We're going to have a football account, baseball account, basketball account. So you're funding football and then paying football officials out of your football account. It can be seasonal. It can be whatever you want it to be. It's a customizable tool really used just to organize your transactions. So just keep in mind you can run reports specific to a cash account. So although if you use one general fund, so everything comes in general, everything comes out of general, you can run a report. All of that data is available to sort and filter by those top things as sport and whatnot. Separating it into a cash account is just a simpler way of not having to sort that data, all at the end of the month together. So that's an option that's completely up to you all. I see just as many schools use one cash account versus multiple cash accounts. That's up to you all to set that up however you want to. And you can add cash accounts at any time. So if you get into the season and maybe you want to do something differently, going into the spring or something, you can always just add cash accounts whenever you see fit. Once your bank account is linked and your cash accounts are set up the way you want, now you're ready to fund your cash account. That's going to be done here on the accounts tab. You'll see the transfer funds and the withdrawal button. These are the buttons that you're going to use to move funds on and off the platform. Again, this is if you're doing an ACH movement onto the platform. If you're using a check, you would send a check and we would deposit those on your behalf. Keep in mind, transfers moving money on and withdrawals moving money off. Those get confused more often than you would expect. So to transfer money onto the account, you're just going to select transfer. You would select from your bank account. It's going to be an option. Once you've verified your bank account, that's going to be an option here. 2, you would select your cash account. If you have multiple cash accounts, you would be able to select which cash account you want to deposit to. The amount, you can type in a description, and then when you hit next and confirm that, you're going to see a transaction line item in that transaction history, and it's going to show a yellow pending status. So you will see that that transfer is pending and it's on its way. ACH transfers, we say 2 to 5 business days. Typically, that's closer to the 2-day mark, but we say 2 to 5 just to be safe. Once those funds post to the account, it's going to move from your pending balance to your available balance, and the line item is going to show a green committed status. So then you would know that those funds are available and ready to use to pay your officials. To withdraw funds, you are able to withdraw any of your available balance at any time. You're going to select your bank account that you're withdrawing to. the amount, and then you would submit that. You would see that line item for those funds being withdrawn. And again, that's the 2 to 5 ACH business days. There is no fee involved in transferring money on the platform or off the platform. If you create multiple cash accounts, you can also transfer funds in between your cash accounts, and that's done also via the transfer funds button. So say it's the end of football season and you want to roll over the remaining balance to basketball, you can move from one cash account to the other, and that's going to be an instant transfer on the platform. It's going to go from one to the other. Once you have funded your account and your funds are available, we're going to switch over to the game schedule. Now you're ready to make a payment to your officials. That's going to be done via the game schedule. So when you're in the game schedule, I typically recommend filtering to the host school. So you're going to want to make sure that you're on the pay window, and you'll notice that if you're not on the pay window, you're not going to have the pay button over to the right-hand side. So just small little nuance. If you can't seem to find the pay button, make sure you're on the pay window. If you filter to your host school, that's going to narrow your game schedule down to only the games that you are hosting, which theoretically those are the games that you're responsible for paying. You can view the entire schedule without filtering down to host, but just keep in mind that the system will allow you to pay any game. So you can pay an away contest. It's going to warn you that you're trying to make payment to an away contest. But if you click through those warnings, the system will allow you to make payment to any game. So just filtering down to that host school is just kind of a safeguard, as well as it makes that schedule easier to look at. Once you're ready to make payment, the game has occurred. These games are being entered on the back end. They're being assigned, the officials are being assigned, those game fees are being updated. Once it gets to the accounting office, it's ready to be paid. To make a payment, it's as simple as clicking on the $sign at the very right-hand side of a game. When you click that $sign, it's going to open up a payment window that's pulling through all of the details that have already been assigned to this game. It's going to pull those officials that are assigned, those game fees that have already been assigned to that official. Those fields are editable. So if at this point you're told, oh, that should be 175 rather than 155, you can go in and edit that. You could deselect if you're not ready to pay official 1. You don't have to pay both at the same time. And then you're going to select that pay now option. You would select your school. So if you were connected to multiple schools, say you're at the district level, you're just selecting which school that you're actually paying on behalf of. And then if you click through that, it's going to, go ahead and click that. It's going to give you a payment confirmation page. And this is going to show you the exact details of the game. And this is going to show you your invoice fee. Keep in mind, this has not yet been updated, and it will be updated prior to day 1 that payments need to be made, but that will be $1.50, not $2. So that's $1.50 per official per day. And so what that means is if you have an official that's calling, say it's basketball, and he's calling multiple games in a night, it's only going to be that $1.50 on that first game that he calls. And then after that, there will be no additional fee incurred for him. The system is going to calculate that automatically when you go to make payment on the game, and you will see that reflected here in this payment confirmation window. And then it's at this point that you would select your payment method. If you had multiple cash accounts, you would select the cash account to which you want to use to make payment. And then when you select commit on that payment, that's an instant transfer out of your cash account into the official's cash account. So they're going to receive that payment instantly in their DragonFly cash account. So keep in mind, any official that is in DragonFly already has a DragonFly cash account. So if they're assigned to a game, then they have a DragonFly cash account and they are ready to be paid. It is on the official's end that they will come in and connect their personal bank account to withdraw those funds. But that's not something that would hold you up on actually making payment. As soon as they're assigned to a game, they're ready to be paid. It's going to go from your cash account to their cash account. So that, just want to mention that you are aware that they all have their cash account, and then they will be managing those personal funds on their end. Excuse me. And with that, I kind of roll into the quick 1099. Because the officials are entering their bank account to withdraw those funds, we collect that 1099 W-9 information at the time that they're entering that bank account. And then we run those reports at the end of the year. We file the 1099 to the IRS and send those directly to the officials. So that's something that will be done through DragonFly. None of the schools will have to do that on their end. That's done automatically. No additional fee for that. So I just want to throw that out there as we're talking about the officials connecting their account. That's how that process works on the back end. One other thing that I like to point out that's useful for the accounting department is the payment vouchers. So we have the option to print a payment voucher for games. It is not required by DragonFly, but it's something that was requested. And so a lot of schools find this beneficial. So you'll see if you click anywhere in a line item of a game, this side window opens up. This is where those game details and the officials are being assigned to a game. And if you move over and click on the Documents tab and then Create Document and Payment Voucher, it's going to give you a PDF of those game details. And so that's pulling through all the official assignments that have been made for that game, the game fees that were already assigned to that game. And you can print that out. You could have your athletic director, your coach, print that out, have your officials sign off on it that they did work that game and they agree to this fee. Again, this is not something that's required by DragonFly, but it is available out there. If that's part of your process currently that you need a voucher signed on hand, you can get to that via the game schedule. One other option that I mentioned while we're here in this, did I see a question? Is there a question? I can't see the question. Did you have a question, Laura?
Yeah, so one question that I think we got earlier is, can you show when you get back to it, show on the screen where the W-9 is, since it's right there in the system?
DragonFly's W-9?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So in school funds and then manage accounts, we keep that stored right here under the financial forms. Was there anything else? Okay. One of the other things that I mentioned while we're on the game schedule, if you want to hop back over, Chelsea, I'll speak to the adding games to a pay sheet. This feature I typically see more used in an org that has maybe a separation of duties. Maybe you have a bookkeeper that's reviewing and prepping for payment, and then you have, someone different that's actually clicking the pay button. And this concept it doesn't necessarily save you any clicks. It's just if you wanted to add it to combine it all in a pay sheet and then click pay at one time. Maybe you want to do it once a week or once a month. It's just an additional option that's out there. So when you click on a game, you can, rather than pay now, you can build a pay sheet. And so you can do that for multiple games, add them all to the same pay sheet, and then go into your pay sheet and click pay now. And so then it would be the same process of selecting that cash account. It's going to calculate those invoice fees at that time. Keep in mind the system's going to do that calculation in the back end, so it's still going to recognize the per official per day transaction fee. It's just going to combine it all into one payment voucher for you. If you would rather do that, if you need to do that, that's just what that pay sheet is. And I just like to mention that that is an option. It's out there if you need that. Once you begin making payments, having transactions, if you want to hop back over to the accounts tab, Chelsea, this is where that transaction history begins to build. And so I don't know if you have any other system opened up, Chelsea, a test system that maybe we could show what that looks like, but or maybe go to New Mexico or just anywhere. As you begin working and moving money in and out, that transaction history will begin to build in that cash account. And that's where you're going to see all the data for that cash account. And so it's going to show you every payment in, every payment out. You're going to be able to see that in that cash account history. In that, you will also be able to see a PDF receipt of any of your transactions. So if someone, needs a copy of a receipt, or if you just need to get back to it, that's going to be available in your cash account. Let's see. It's usually easier to kind of get a visual, so maybe this open up. If you had multiple cash accounts, you would be able to toggle between those. And so the drop down arrow would let you move back and forth and see the specific transactions, related to that cash account. But if you'll click anywhere on a transaction line item, so any transaction is going to open up this side view bar, and this is going to give you that additional just quick view detail of that transaction. You'll notice there's also the PDF link if you need to open a PDF, print that, save that for your records. That's available in every transaction line item. Also, in the accounts tab, this is where you will go to run reports. So if you click on, did you make that, Chelsea? If you click on the icon that looks like a sheet of paper, that is going to give you your report options. And so these reports are, we don't currently have a customize your own report feature, but I will say that these reports were built by an accountant for accountants. So hopefully these will at least get you everything that you would need at the end of the month to reconcile that account. If you're downloading it and importing your transactions into your accounting software, hopefully these reports will make that easier for you. I will say that the cash account all data report, which is going to be that bottom option, that is going to be literally every piece of data related to your transaction. So sometimes that might be a little overwhelming. It was built by a brilliant engineer. But it's going to give you literally every piece of data related to a transaction. So I would recommend starting at that detailed transaction history and up. Those are Excel downloads versus, the all data is a CSV download. And they are just taking the same data and filtering and sorting it in different ways that I think of the data. open to suggestions. This is something that, is semi-new for DragonFly. We rolled these out earlier this year, specifically with our accountants in mind and giving them more user-friendly reporting options. So hopefully these will give you usable reports for your month end and your reconciliation. Also, here is your invoices tab. So those PDF receipts, those are also being stored here in your invoices tab. So anytime you make a payment to an official, it's going to generate that invoice and stamp that paid. So you're going to have a copy of it and your official is going to have a copy of it. And that's just going to live here in your invoices tab. If you begin to transact between schools, if you're invoicing for certain things, those are going to be accessible here in this invoices tab. You have the ability to create an invoice should you need to. That can be to a different organization. We don't have the function to invoice or send payment directly to an official. Any payment to an official or worker has to be via a game. They have to be assigned to a game, but you do have the option to invoice a different organization. So maybe it's a tournament fee or anything like that. You can create that invoice, send that to that organization, and then that organization can pay you via DragonFly. Keep in mind there is a $2 transaction fee on paying invoices in DragonFly. That's across the board. It's no fee to send an invoice. It's on the payment side. So if you just send an invoice and they pay you outside of DragonFly, there's no fee associated with that creating an invoice, and you can come in and mark that as paid. So just know that general invoice option is out there and available should you need to use it. I think that is pretty much the gist of what I have. Open to questions. Or Chelsea, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention?
I think that's a great coverage so far. Laura, if you have any other ones in the chat that we need to address, we can do that at this time also.
Most of the ones in the chat we've been answering. I think it was good to go over the reports. We did have a couple questions on that, showing the reports and the transactions. I've used those as well and find them useful. Here's another question coming in. Can we see what the export looks like from the transaction data?
Yeah, so Chelsea, run a detailed transaction history and just maybe do the month of June.
See if y'all can y'all see my pullover from it?
Yes, we can.
So this is a detailed all data pool.
So this report is going to break out. If you scroll back over to the left, you'll see, scroll to the right. And it may be that they don't have any official payments in this particular example, but this report would break out your invoice fee versus your game fee. So you would be able to itemize those separately. So you can sort and filter based on game fee specific versus those invoice fees. These report, you would be able to see that in this report. This particular example doesn't have that. They just weren't paying officials, but that would be broken out if you run this report. I think you're muted.
Another question, if where the organization funds tab is Is that viewable to everyone, or do they need to have permissions?
So you would need to have the appropriate permissions for that. So that's going to be one of those things that is based on your user role. So depending on what that bank account and cash account is currently set to, so the user roles that have already been assigned compared to what your personal user role is. So you would just want to make sure you work with the administrator on that account to ensure that those user roles, you have the correct, if you need access, that you have those user roles that are going to make that viewable for you.
I'll expand on that a little bit, Laura. You know, I think some of the concerns are administrative staff worrying whether or not a coach will see that on the left-hand side of the screen. They will see the tab there of school funds. Now, if they don't have that role set to expand their view when they click into manage accounts or invoices, they'll see the tabs there. It will just be a blank screen. They won't see any information hidden behind that unless they are given specific permissions within the cash account to give them those additional views.
And just for a point of clarity on the invoicing, the invoices, if one district invoices another district or school invoices another school, does that come through the system, or would that just be outside the system, either via mail or email?
So you have the option to email that invoice, correct, Chelsea? I
Yes.
think once you create that, it's going to give you the option to send that invoice. So you'll have a PDF copy of it that if you want to download it and send it externally out of DragonFly, and then also send it inside of DragonFly, and then that org that you're invoicing is going to see it in their invoices section as well as an invoice to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I think that we've come to the end of our questions. Thanks everyone for attending and working with us through the technical challenges we had this time. Those should be, we should be over the hump with those for future virtuals. Again, if you would like a refresher, we will be doing this again on July 10th, and for a few Tuesdays go forward. It will be much of the same information, but if you'd like a refresher closer to the school year, please register for one of those.
Yes, thank you all so much for hanging in there with us. And like I said, feel free to reach out directly or to our support team if we can help in any way.